Hey guys, Lorene here with Silver Lining Nation. Hope you guys are having an amazing day, and we just want to thank you guys for tuning in to Silver Lining Nation. We really appreciate it. Also guys, make sure you share, subscribe, and most of all, stay sober. Bye guys.
Serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom of difference. Welcome to the Pride Month episode of Silver Lining, live from Cedar Springs. Today we have Joni, Tanner, and Joey. And of course, my name is Ash. You've seen me a couple times. So we're just celebrating Pride Month down here on Cedar Springs, and I just wanted to invite these two out here, or three out here, and just talk a little bit about recovery. So, Joey, how did you find the rooms?
Well, I always kind of say I came in through the back door. Because my ex was an alcoholic, and I decided that he was the problem. So I would go to Al-Anon meetings, and the state of Texas also was very influential in my decision to sober up. So that was highly recommended that I go to inpatient treatment, and we had guys that came in twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and would bring the program in down in that facility. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. For the AA aspect was going through that, and when you're locked up and you kind of don't have a whole lot of anything, somebody gets to walk in and they got to do something as simple as eat after an hour and go home. It's like, obviously my way isn't working real well because I got this shitty 2-inch plastic mattress, and I got to share a bathroom with 8 other guys, and it's time to do something different. So that's kind of where it started for me, really, was after I got locked up.
All right, thank you, Joey. What about you, Tanner?
How did I find the rooms?
Google. Good answer.
Got into a little too much hot water with my family and the people around me in the state of Texas. And then moving up in the nearest AA meeting, went a couple of times. Also to get people off my back. But I do remember sitting in the first meeting and being like, I kind of get along with y'all. Like everything y'all are saying, I was like, I can kind of relate to this. That's interesting, but not from the right angle. What I was really thinking is like, I would love to drink with y'all. That sounds like a good time. And it took me a few years to really realize what end of the table I should be sitting at. But yeah.
Thanks, Tanner. What about you, Joni?
What brought me into the rooms? Like a really good friend of mine, like physically, and it bothered me to the point where I knew I had a problem. I mean, like, I could hurt myself all day long. I could wreck my car. I could do all kinds of things to myself. But the fact that I hurt somebody that I cared about, it was like my snap, wake up call, the slap in the face that I needed, that the way that I was living was not the correct way to live. It was very destructive, and I don't know, I lost her as a friend, but without me going through that, I don't think I would have ever sobered up, or I don't think I would have really hit my bottom if I didn't go through that. So that's what got me sober.
So I guess a question for anyone, if you had anything to say to someone that was gay and coming into the program, would there be any specifics? Or is there anything that you find special or different of coming into the rooms and being gay?
anything specific.
I
can answer the question.
Go ahead.
So when I first went into the rooms, I was so broken and so like raw that I was very uncomfortable in my own skin. So when I walked in, it was like people were like welcoming, and it was kind of weird. Like not weird, but it was very uncomfortable for me when I first went. People were happy. People were wanting you to come back because I wasn't really. I don't think I've ever really went anywhere where someone wanted me to come back and hang out. And so when I first walked in, I don't think it really mattered if you were a woman, a man, if you were gay, lesbian, whatever. They were just welcoming and happy to come back. So,
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. It really doesn't matter. So, relationships. Does anybody have any advice about relationships in sobriety?
so loud.
Oh.
Like,
We know not to
Personal relationships, friendships, intimate relationships. What?
Don't have an intimate relationship for the first year. That's probably
Lights are all bright and shit.
They are.
Between the sky, the street.
In the ambulance.
This is a busy street.
It is very busy.
It's crazy, but it's busy.
And we do edit and everything like that, so
Yeah. Oh, okay, so it is video.
we edit. How's it going?
You got married?
All right, congratulations.
Alright. That's nice.
All right.
Okay.
So how about relationships and sobriety?
like intimate relationships the first year. Don't do it. Just don't. You know, you're not in. You got to learn how to have a different relationship with yourself, really, and a lot of people around you. So like bringing somebody else into your house, it's a mess. Like you're a mess, you know. And it takes a while to kind of sift through like how you're thinking, how you're feeling, like who am I? What does this look like now? And how do I go forward from here? So like you're really not in a place to like kind of navigate like the added complexities of bringing this other person and dynamic into your personal space, because you really, I think when we're out there just drinking all the time, we've abused ourselves, our personal space, our boundaries, so many things for our own selves that we don't know how to do that with anybody else. And so we have to really kind of be in a healthier place. And it's not like, oh, you know, day 366, I can go start dating again. Some people, it's longer, you know. And then as far as like family and friends, that's an interesting dynamic, because you really do have to learn how to. A lot of those relationships for me changed. You know, like I've always had a really close relationship with my mom, but I kind of realized that it was too close. Like I needed to back away, because like we needed more space, because it was not healthy how close we were on a lot of levels. And so those have changed too. So,
What about you, Joni?
As far as like relationships and like rooms, the one thing I did find was that I found like a second family, I guess you could say. Everybody was pretty accepting, and I don't know, like I've made like so many friends in the rooms, and I don't know, it's just all been positive, I guess. Yeah.
What about dating and sobriety?
Dating and sobriety is not, I don't know. I have like a lot of experience dating and sobriety, I guess. And yeah, everything he said.
So I figure I had one introspection when I finally decided, or within myself, that I was gay, right? Like I had to debate it because my upbringing, I had to debate it with myself, and I finally came out around the beginning of 2014, right? But then yeah, believe it or not. But that's like to everybody. Like my friends knew before then, but like my family didn't, or they denied it before then. So did you figure like you had that different introspection the second time when you first came in, figuring out who you are in sobriety? Go ahead.
I had a lot of fear on this. I had a lot of fear on all of it. I had already come out to my family and stuff before I got sober, but I still had not really accepted who I was as a person. And that was one of the things that I think fueled my drinking and self-hate a lot. And then I also had this weird, irrational fear that, like, because I was so young, like, I came in rooms at, like, 19. But, like, if I didn't drink, I was never going to have a social life. I was never going to do it. Because everything that I knew, which was almost nothing, about dating and gay culture was bars and clubs. And that was it. And I'm like, well, if I take those out of the mix, we're alone, buddy. Which is stupid, right? Now that I'm way past that and grown, like, that's dumb. And honestly, like, that's not where you find someone usually anyway. But that's what was in my head at the time. So yeah, relationships were a big, like, source of fear for me in the beginning, I think.
So now that you know that you don't have to go out to bars and things of that sort, what do you do with your time? Like, how do you fill your time?
I think that's the hardest part, right? And I don't think that has anything to do with gay, straight, any of that. It's like, I had a really good career getting wasted. And I think for so many of us alcoholics, our disease does such a good job of weaving itself into just about every fabric of our life. People who are our friends, the places we go, the things we do for fun, the jobs we take, the time we have off, the schedule we keep, how much money do we make, everything is, that's the nucleus of, like, so much of our decision-making process. And so, for me, it wasn't like, oh, who am I as gay? I was fine with being gay. That was not a problem at all. It was, it's 5 o'clock now, what do I do? Because I would go to the bar. I was going to hold that bar stool down and that's what happened from 5 to question. I always said 8, I'll be home by 8, but that's never how it went down. So it's like, now I have all this time to figure out what am I doing, and that's kind of where the work really starts. It's like, you kind of have to have this dialogue with yourself of, like, okay, who am I? What do I do? What do I do? What do I want that to look like? And that's really scary for a lot of us, but I think the challenge is not being, like, in fear with that kind of mentality, like, in that situation, and just kind of being more, like, excited about it. Like, okay, who can I be today? Like, who can I be tomorrow? Like, what can I make? Like, we don't get to, like, wipe the slate clean every day and say, like, I get to start over. Like, God took everything in my life and He pretty much just ripped that stuff and threw it in the garbage. And I was really upset about that. I lost my business. I lost everything. I came home to pretty much nothing, and the bank saying, we're going to take your house. And I was like, well, I'm at ground zero, so how do I want to rebuild this thing? And that's kind of the cool part. If you really stay plugged into the program, you kind of get to have this new life that I didn't design anything I have today. Nothing. That is all my higher power, and He's done all of that. I'm just kind of along for the ride. I'm in the passenger seat up front, and I don't have a steering wheel, and I don't have a gas pedal or brake.
That's hard to do, isn't it?
Ew.
What about hobbies, guys?
Hobbies, that's the age-old question. I think, you kind of touched on it. Like, for so long, like, I was a drinker. That was my identity. And, like, people knew me as the guy that would drink you all under the floor. And, like, I took a modicum of pride in that. And then when I took that away, I was like, I don't I don't know what else there is, you know? Like, people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, hobbies? I don't have those. Like, you gotta figure that out, I guess. Like, figure it out. And then you just go out and start trying stuff, and you're like, maybe I golf or something. I don't fucking know. I don't golf. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the fun part of sobriety is like you said, what can I be today, right? And going out and seeing what else you can do. Like maybe you're actually good at something.
Got anything to add?
Me? Add to the hobbies? So when I first got sober, he's right. I did have a lot of time. I had a lot of time. I had a lot of time to think too. I like sat there and thought a lot, which sucks. It's like the worst place to be. My fear was, not fear, but what I went through was the loneliness, being alone. And I got being lonely and being alone mixed up together. I was feeling lonely, but at the same time I was alone. So it was like really hard to like figure out the difference between the two. But once I figured out that it was okay to be alone, and it was okay to eat by yourself, and it was okay to watch a movie by yourself, it was okay to like just want to do things by yourself. Once I figured that out and sat with myself, because I hated to be with myself and actually have to look at myself and actually just be in the moment. Once I finally like got over all of the rawness and being alone, I actually really like being alone now. I enjoy it. I like to go home and chill by myself and not have to go do stuff. But I can get a little bit too isolated, so I have to watch that now. But that was probably the hardest part, was getting to know myself and what I like. And now I know that I like to travel. I like to go to concerts. I even like to work out, and that's like so. That's not me. Like I didn't know, but yeah, it's pretty good to get to know yourself after you get a little bit older.
I was about to ask, like, balance. Have you found your balance between recovery and your personal life?
Anyone say yes to that? I think that comes and goes in waves though too. I think in the beginning I had a lot of time, so I had a lot of meetings. I went to a lot of meetings. I went out with people for meetings eventually, at first I was like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to leave, and that's as much as I'm, get my paper signed, and like, that's about it. But, eventually I started like kind of coming into the pack, if you will. And so that was a lot of my time was, people from the program. And then that's kind of, especially since COVID, like slowed down a little bit. And then I had a job where I traveled for work, and I was gone for weeks at a time. And so, I was with myself, and I didn't really have people. But there's times where the balance kind of shifts a little bit, and it seems like it's a little more even-keeled. Like right now I work all the time, and I don't do enough meetings, and I don't have enough of just like, and I can feel when that balance starts to get like this, and it's like, you have to really make a conscious effort to kind of toe it back down. I have to say no to a project or something, because it's like, I don't have the time for this, or it's going to start taking too much time away from something else. And, that's where I get in trouble, is like being a yes person, always saying yes to everything or everybody, and the person that I'm saying no to is myself and my program. And that's where it gets dangerous. So some days are better than others. Like this month is thumbs down for me. Next month should be like a little bit more in the middle. But I have to make it a priority.
What about the two of you?
I agree with a lot of what you said. Do I have a perfect balance? No. There are some times that are better than others. Sometimes I swing it too heavy in one direction or the other. Like, I'll hit a meeting 5 nights in a week, you know? And, like, it's cool when I do that, but then, like, the next week, I'm like, you got nothing else done. You know? And we end up just swinging it in the other direction to make up for it. So I think for me, like, a lot of the balance comes with, like, the parts of my program that are not meetings. So, like, picking up the phone, talking to a sponsor, talking to people from the program, and not necessarily making, like, my involvement about going to a meeting every Sunday purely for, like, schedule reasons. Because I can pick up the phone and call somebody while I'm driving to and from somewhere else. Yeah.
And that entails fellowship as well. Was it easy for you to integrate into fellowship?
See, when I came in, it was a lot. Like, I felt like, and a lot. I've always been this way my whole life, and I think a lot of it is just due to being gay. Kind of like try and push into the background as much as possible. So I'm always kind of the person that's like, I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm gonna try and read the room and assess the situation, because like I grew up that way. I had to be that way growing up, and so like walking into the rooms was the same thing. You know, I'm like, I don't know what this is about. I don't know what's going on here. So I'm just going to sit in the corner and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And I'm going to watch all y'all like a hawk and trying to figure out what it is, you know, because it's hard for me to step out of my comfort zone. There's a lot of fear there, you know. So it was a long time before I remember the first time somebody was like, hey, you should come eat with us. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, you know. Like I was really kind of like, what's this all about? And then like, I just really were like, sure, whatever. And I went, you know, and it wasn't bad. Like, I didn't die, I didn't get murdered. Like, nothing crazy happened, you know. Everybody just sat around and talked and ate, and, like, I met a few people, and, you know, before I knew it, you just fold right in. And it's not bad, you know, but it's scary. It's scary, you know. That's really all it is kind of that intimidation factor. At least for me, it was just kind of like, what are these people going to think of me? How do I fit in? You know, and it brought up like so many like things from my childhood that I felt, you know, along the way too. So, but you know, once you kind of jump in the pool, it's like, you know, it's not that hard.
Right. It's a big fear thing, basically. How are we dealing with fear today?
A lot of phone calls.
Joni, do you have any comments about the fellowship?
About the fellowship? Like, I don't know, I was like thinking about it. Like when I first came in, I don't know. Yeah, everybody was welcoming. It was, yeah. So I'm not used to that. And yeah, I did all of that. Like, it was so uncomfortable. I kept getting invited to things, and I was just like, ugh. Like, no, I don't want to go. But at the same time, it was like, well, I can just go home and just like stare at the wall, or I can hang out with them. Like, what should I do? But then at the same time, too, I was like, yeah, I need to get to know these people. I mean, like, what am I going to do? So, yeah, it was really uncomfortable. I mean, like, nobody likes to be uncomfortable. But, yeah, I did, like, step in, and then, yeah, and then they hug a lot. The hugging part is just, like,
you love it.
Was really hard. It was cringe. I really hated it. Like, they would always hug to say goodbye and hug when you welcome. Yeah, it was a lot for me. I'm finally able to hug now, but when I first showed up to the program, I couldn't stand it. I would just like, I would cringe every time someone would hug me. I would just be like, okay, thank you. But now I'm like, okay, hey, what's up? How are you doing? And now I do that to new people, and it's actually kind of funny to see it happen again.
That's so fun.
Yes. Cracks me up.
Tanner?
One thing y'all made me think of, I remember being terrified to ask someone to sponsor me at the beginning, because I knew there was a force staff, I knew there was a sex inventory. I was like, I'm going to have to tell one of these people that I'm gay. And they're gonna have to hear about all my gayness. And they're gonna fucking hate it, right? Because I didn't get sober here in Dallas. Like, I was still out in the sticks a little bit. And I was scared about that. I really was scared about that. And you know what? Nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit at all. So, like, once I finally got her up, and I bounced in and out for years before I let somebody sponsor me. For years. But once I finally did it, I was just like, why did I wait so long for that? They don't care. But, yeah, I don't know. It's more fear stuff, I guess.
Right. Oh, that was a trip. I remember my first going through that, and he was like, it didn't matter. And I'm like, really? And then I also fell a part of at that point. So when did you first feel a part of, like, completely cohesive with the program?
That I'll go to, and I still walk in and I'm like, you know, like, I don't belong here, you know, like, these are all super successful professionals, and like, that's really intimidating, you know. But like, so I used to go to late meetings all the time, just because kind of like when the sober living houses would manage to get their meetings in, and their lives were a mess. I'm like, oh, I can relate to that because my life's a mess, you know. But I found a meeting that worked for me, and the more I went, the more I started to see the same people over and over again, and I, you know, like, remember their names or know what they were talking about. Kind of remember, like, oh, this person is this, and this, and they're from this, and that's what happened. And like that sense of familiarity with kind of a group of people, even though we weren't always hanging out outside of the rooms, but just knowing who they were inside of the rooms, it kind of got me to a point where I was really comfortable just kind of opening up with whoever at that point. So that was kind of finding that meeting, that group, that place where, like, I felt like home. That was kind of when I really felt like I could fold it in. It wasn't like just, you know, went to dinner, or we went to IHOP that one night on the 23rd.
Right.
It wasn't like that.
Joni?
When I felt like I was a part of the group, I think it was when I was afraid to do, like, my fourth step, I think, and I went to, like, I talked about it with somebody that had, like, pretty much the same amount of sobriety with me, and we both, like, sat there and bitched about it together. I think that's when I knew I was, like, because we could relate and stuff, and yeah, then we instantly became, like, good friends after that. And I don't know, it was just like, I don't know, that was like the first person that I really related with, and they were like my ride or die or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we got sober together, our times were pretty close together, and yeah, and we did a lot of the steps pretty much close together, so that was when I knew I was kind of like part of it.
It's pretty cool.
For someone to spend time with and stuff.
What you, Tanner?
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question. I shouldn't say this, but I almost feel like I got in the rooms too early. Like, because I got in the rooms way before I was ready to get in. So I bounced in and out for multiple years before I ever made any kind of, like, firm commitment or did any work on it. So, like, I kind of felt like part of the group during those years, because everybody always welcomed me back. Like, even though I was, like, no joke, like 28 desire chips deep. No one ever, like, gawked at me or acted like I wasn't supposed to be there, but But I didn't really feel like I was like planted in the group until I actually started doing the steps and actually started working with a sponsor and things actually started to change. Then I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. You know, like before that, it was just like repeated Hail Marys, but once I really got my feet planted and started getting some traction, that's when I was like, all right, now I'm part of the pack, you know? But by then, like, I'd already known everybody for 4 years. Just decided to sit down at the table, I guess.
So we talked a little bit about family earlier. Did you have to rebuild your trust with your family? Does anybody want to start or talk about that a little bit? Trust with the family?
Rebuilding trust with family, yeah. So when I first, I had to rebuild my trust back with my daughter. Rebuilding trust back with her was, that was like the hardest thing I had to do. I made a lot of like empty promises, you know, like drunk promises, like, oh yeah, we'll go and do that tomorrow, and then I would get drunk and then be hungover all day, and I wouldn't show up for her. Like, I did that constantly for years, and then I got sober, and then I would say something, and then she was used to me not following through with it, so because I didn't follow through, she didn't believe me. So building that trust back with her was probably the hardest thing. It took me a really long time to do that, but now I've been sober for almost 7 years now, so we have a really good relationship now, but it took a really long time to get to where we're at now. But yeah, building trust back with her was that was probably the hardest thing I had to do.
It's Joni.
Trust with my family. I didn't even tell my parents I was sober until I picked up a 6-month chip. Because I had shown them they'd seen so many desire chips and so many 1-month chips and so many 3-month chips over and over, and I just never, like, I didn't even tell them, because part of me didn't believe it myself that it was going to stick. And the way I told my mother was really shitty. It was like as a defense mechanism, right? I came home late studying one night, and she's like, "Where have you been?" And I was like, 6-month chip, like, board off. So definitely, it took some time to rebuild that trust. But I think a big turning point for that was making amends to my family, especially to my dad, because, like I said, I've broken that trust and made that promise so many times that it took a little something extra for them to actually take it seriously. But yeah, 6-7 years later, I have a better relationship now with my family than I ever did before.
Tanner?
I had a different experience because, like, I literally physically removed myself from everybody. So, you know, we were always raised that you're out at 18 and you're on your own. And we took the ball and ran. So I've been out of the house for plenty of years. Don't call for money, don't do that stuff, you know. And as far as that was concerned, I, towed the line with that. And so I've always been states away from my family, so there's kind of been a physical barrier between, them and me. But I knew that they wouldn't approve of how I was acting and what I was doing. Like, I know that, but I was so far removed away from them that I didn't feel like, they really ever saw that and had a direct impact on their life. Funerals, Christmas, weddings, small occasions, things like that. But I just didn't really trust myself to be around this. Because when I would go, I would really have to think about what I was going to do, how much I was going to drink. It was very calculated. my mom came down for Thanksgiving, and I'll never forget it because we went to a friend of mine's house, and I was like, I can only drink so much because, like, if I get messy, she won't know how to get me home. And I don't want to put her in a position to have to drive me home because I'm too drunk. And so I never really enjoyed drinking around my family, and so I just wasn't present very often. But I had to learn how to trust myself to show up. That makes sense. Because I practiced being vacant for so long. Like now, work is showing up and being and trusting myself to be present enough or and really just keep it at bay so I won't hurt them and others. So I just had to trust myself with my time and stuff with them now. But it's never like stealing a car or, anything like that. I didn't have that situation with my family. But then on the flip side too, like when somebody takes your time away from you, like your kid or something like that's fucked up too, And you're just like, well, I'm good. I'm just gonna stay, 10 hours away and not interact.
So, one more question about gratitude. Do you use gratitude in your day-to-day in recovery? Or is it more of something you think about only after you've heard a topic about it?
No gratitude. I'm not a gracious person.
So I had my first sponsor was big about, like whenever he would come down, read me your gratitude list, like write a gratitude list. And I remember every time I would go to a meeting, and I started like in the back of one of those books, and I have my list at the very last page, and I would work my way into the middle to where it would hit like wherever I started with my step work or whatever at the front. And I used to do that every single night. I'm not as good about like writing them down now, but like, that exercise of really going through and writing it down day after day after day after day was really helpful because sometimes it is a shitty day. Like, there's just some really shitty days. Like, I had a really shitty Sunday. Nothing was going right. Nothing was going right. And I'm like, okay, well, what can go right today? Well, everything blew up today, so I might as well get some rest. I'm tired of it, have something good to eat. Or, like, it could be as simple as, like, the weather was good today, or the girl at Starbucks was super fast. I mean, it's never like this huge bombshell thing. Sometimes it's just the simplest things that you're like, oh, that was awesome.
Joni?
As far as like gratitude, every morning when I start my day, I actually I wake up, I get ready and all that, and then when I'm driving down the freeway to work, that's usually when I start thinking about what's the nice to start my day. Like I obviously pray, then I start thanking like for all the good stuff that's happening, like my job, like my car, and waking up, just keeping everything just really, really simple. If I start my day like that, like where it's like more positive and where I have I get to do this versus I have to do this, it's just the way. If I start my day out that way, it usually ends up just building on it, and then I have like excellent days after excellent days, and I don't know, it's just the way I am now. It's the way I'm programmed. But when I first got sober, it was really hard to actually write a gratitude list. I couldn't think of anything that I was grateful for. I really couldn't. I used to always think of everything in a negative light. Like, I was a victim, so it was always stuff, like I was always like drama and everything, and I never wanted to look at myself like I was the common denominator, like it was always me. It was always your fault. You did this to me and stuff like that. But after I changed my thinking and realized that I was the problem and it was just me, then it was a lot easier to write a gratitude list. It was a lot easier to see like simple things. I'm a lot more grateful for a lot of things now.
Thank you, Joni, and thank you all for coming today. We're grateful for y'all watching us on Silver Lining Nation. And if nobody said that they love you today, we love you.
Do we have to do that again?
Huh?
Do we have to do that again?
No.
No. I mean, what do you think?
Was that a good one? It was a long pause.
You really mean.
It was kind of cringe. It was kind of cringe.
Y'all just want me to say it. I can say it.
It was so cringe for me.
Yeah. Yeah, ready?
Do you want me to just do it?
Alright, do it again.
The outro?
And we're grateful for you for watching us today on Silver Lining Nation. And if nobody said they love you today, we love you.
We love you.
Love you.